find a community that you enjoy being a part of, like a gym community, and you want to make sure it's fun too, right? Like if you're going to be doing it for a long time and that's the goal, it's not just a one and done type thing. It's a lifestyle. You want to become the person that works out consistently and prioritize your health. Welcome everyone to our Thursday Facebook Live chat, and welcoming everyone who's listening, whether it's on YouTube or podcast or your preferred listening device or platform. Today, we're talking about the building blocks of a good exercise and or nutrition routine. And we want to dive in a little bit into this just to kind of give you all a picture of how you can kind of, if you're trying to create your own routine at home, you can start to build the blocks for that, or your own nutrition program, or get a deeper look into what we do when we train and coach people. Shall we?
Go for it.
Let's do it. So we're going to start with, I'll just list the steps out and we'll dive a little bit deeper into them. So you start with why. That's going to be your anchor. Then you get a baseline. So this is like measuring where you are. So as an example, if you want to get, your goal might be to get pull-ups. You have to know how many pull-ups you currently have. If you want to get 10 pull-ups, you have to know if you have 0 pull-ups or 1 pull-up. That's important to know. So why? You get your baseline, and then you start to create small goals. These small goals are like milestones. And then you remeasure based on your milestones and your whys, and then you rinse and repeat. So
I was gonna say, you stole my line of like
the rinse and repeat.
Yeah. Oh, now I gotta think of something else.
So
okay, it's like the eat, sleep, workout. Eat, sleep,
repeat.
repeat. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say today, and you stole my line. Shoot.
Well, Tom and I dove into your why, understanding your why and why it's important. So we won't dive deeper into that. That's kind of your anchor. The next is getting your baseline. So either one of you want to touch on, Jilisa, maybe you can touch on the nutrition piece, and Tom, you want to touch on the exercise piece of getting a baseline, why it's important, how you do that?
Yeah, I think, nutrition is an easy place to start with that because, well, before you start any nutrition program or before you're able to make any changes, you kind of have to know where you're starting. And for nutrition, obviously that would look like, I do this with my clients for all of our onboarding sessions. If you just say walk me through what an average day of what your nutrition looks like. And that's kind of where we start with our baseline. We obviously would talk about, occasionally we'll talk about baseline weight, if that's a healthy place to be or what our goals are around that. But in order to know where we're going in a realistic fashion, we need to know what the baseline is. So to say, let's say a person has McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and supper, expecting them to follow a perfect plate method or something like that, nutrition program right off the hop might not be realistic. So without that baseline measurement, it's hard to make appropriate goals or appropriate plans for how to reach your goals. So I think that's one example. I mean, the same would go for in the gym of, if we have a goal of getting 10 pull-ups, we need to know first if you can do 1 or 0 or 5. And having that baseline would determine how we approach those goals. So, that's how we do baselines.
Love it.
I would say for fitness, it's it's tricky in my opinion, because you don't want to necessarily come into the gym day 1 and test a 1 rep max deadlift if you don't know the technique. Right. So I think finding a baseline is a little bit trickier. And we know a lot of people see some really good gains very early on, not necessarily because they have gained a lot more strength or a lot more muscle mass per se, but their body just gets so much better used to the movement, or they get, more practice with a certain movement pattern. And then all of a sudden they can do way more for deadlifts, squats, or cleans or whatever. Just through practice. and the kind of the neurological component of understanding how your body needs to move for this specific movement. And so I think at the beginning, in regards to fitness, for strength stuff, anyways, you kind of want to see where you can lift comfortably without sacrificing any form. It should feel a little bit hard. Like usually when I start people out, I'm like, I want this to feel like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 while we're keeping pretty good or very good form. Like we don't want to compensate too much there. So that's, I guess, kind of a trickier one for like weightlifting type stuff. If you do come in and if it's something like pull-ups or push-ups or something like that, I think as long as you have like a general technique down, you could test a max on somewhere earlier on. Or if it's, running that you want to get good at, or rowing or biking and you want to get a lot better at that, that's a little bit easier to test a baseline. It might be like, instead of, we're not going to, run until you drop, it might be like, okay, let's test a 1K or a 3K run today and just see how quickly you can do that. And then we'll measure that again in maybe, 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever it is. Same thing with rowing. Like a really classic benchmark workout in CrossFit is a 2,000-meter row. Mm-hmm. Right. So let's just see how you, yeah, we did a bunch of rowing yesterday. So everyone's probably still got that in their back of their mind somewhere. But yeah, just benchmarks like that. I would say the trickier part comes when it gets to weightlifting, because, well, you'll still find a good starting point. It's not to say you won't find a starting point, but you won't be able to find like a true max right away, or at least I don't think you should find a true max right away, especially if you're fairly new to lifting. That's got to be a bit of a slower build up for it.
Yeah, and you can even think of like a 5K run. So if your goal is to run 5 kilometers under 20 minutes, as an example, and you do the first 5K and you walk a bit, you could take 2 measurements there as a baseline. 1, you walked for a bit, and 2, it might be a different time than under 20 minutes, which it would be if you walked for a little bit. So then you have 2 different benchmarks or markers that you can use as metrics. You're going to say something. Go ahead, Jane.
No, I was just thinking about, like when we do our fundamentals program, the first workout we always do is like such a basic but challenging workout, because it includes the most basic movements that we like to teach right at the beginning. So rowing, squatting, push-ups, sit-ups, ring rows, or pull-ups. And it's wild, like how much people can improve even in those first like 5 to 8 sessions, because we usually do it the first day and the last day of fundamentals. And seeing how far people get on day 1 versus day 8 or whatever it might be, or day 5, is crazy. And a lot of times that's just confidence in body movement, but sometimes it is too just actually skill in that quick amount of time. So it is cool that we can, like, even for beginners, measure a baseline so quickly and so easily with functional movement patterns without having to have like a ton of skill in terms of weightlifting or gymnastics movements or that kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't have this in front of me, so you guys fill in the gaps, but there's different measurements in fitness, right? There's 10 general physical skills, which is stamina, endurance, strength, power, flexibility, balance, accuracy, agility.
Oh, you're doing good.
No.
Did you say, I don't know, I don't remember what you said. It's strength, power.
Yeah.
Did you say them? Cardiovascular.
Should maybe pull that up before the end. We'll pull it up for the end. And what'd you say, Jay?
Gymnastics.
No, that would be a modality. It's a way to get
coordination.
Oh yeah, that's
coordination.
it. I knew something.
Yeah.
That's like number 10 on my list of skills. So I was like, the one that I'm really bad at, I don't know what it is.
So there's lots of different ways. I think Tom's going to look it up for us. There's lots of different ways you can measure, but basically getting a measurement. So from there, so you have your why, you start with your anchor. Why is this important to you? Mm-hmm. Get your baseline, measure it out in all different ways. And then you create milestones or goals. Now, let's say as an example, you heard I use the example of a 5K. So maybe your goal then is, if you know that you can run a 5 kilometer in 25 minutes, and your goal might be to run it sub 22 minutes. That's a goal, right? And you measure goals with either percent, a value of like currency, or a number. Now, most times, if not very, like never are you really gonna be able to measure money directly to fitness. I mean, it's gonna be a byproduct. If you're healthier, more productive, it's gonna help you in your job so you can increase money, but it's really hard to attach money to fitness gains. But so you usually use percent or number. So it could be increased weight lifted or decreased muscle, or sorry, increased muscle, decreased body fat, all these different metrics. So that's how you start to build out your goals, these little milestone markers. So you can have a big goal. So let's say you have a year-long goal. I know you're working with someone who wants to run a marathon or a 10K, Tom?
Half marathon.
Half marathon. So that's the big goal. So then I'm sure you work together to create smaller goals from there.
Yeah, it's all about well, for her, it's getting back into running and building up the running volume slowly. So again, we've kind of over the last, like, we're on week 4 or 5 now, so we're build up like a baseline of running, and then I believe the run is I think it's in June or July.
Yep.
But so then along the way, there's checkpoints that we're going to have. I was talking to her about it today. I was like, there'll be a time where maybe we test, the first one might be testing a 5K, and then along the way, she lives out in the country, and we always joked about it because country kids, like, a country block is 6 miles, so then which is close to 10K. So then eventually maybe we'll test a 10K, do a country block, but those are at, like, set times throughout the rest of the program. And right now it's just a baseline right now, and then there's a formula that we use to slowly add on volume as well. Yeah.
Yep. Love it. And then, Jilisa, you want to touch on like celebrating these things? You're the celebrator. You love celebrating people.
Yeah, I do.
I mean, me and Tom do too, but you're just amazing at it.
I feel like it's a spiritual gifting of mine. Before I said that, when you were like, Tom, when you were like, there's like a special formula for figuring out like how much to add. I had a picture of, like, that GIF or GIF or however you want to say it, of that guy and like all the numbers on the chalkboard. That's what I was picturing when you said that, because in my mind I'm like, that is confusing. But anyways, celebrating. Yeah, I don't know. Just do it a lot, all the time, and find someone who wants to celebrate you. Because I know it's not always easy it's boring to celebrate ourselves by ourselves. So it's just so much better when you have someone to celebrate with. So whether that's like your coach, a community, someone you're sharing your goals with or whatever, but like, why do we not celebrate more? Like, it's like the one thing that we can always do no matter what. We should do it more. And I think it's funny when people are like modest and so humble about their reaching their goals and like don't want to share them or don't want to tell anyone about it or don't want to, like, even we have like a PR board and they're so shy about writing it on the board. And I'm like, just do it so that everybody can celebrate you. And it's so exciting. And like, we need to get used to like being okay with celebrating ourselves too, I think. And that's just my opinion, but it makes it way more fun if you can celebrate it along the way. And like, not even just like the final goal, but the baby steps that have like brought you to that point. Because once you get there, if you wait to celebrate till you only can celebrate the goal, like, you miss a lot of opportunities to like be proud of your progress and be proud of your hard work and to like have fun with it. And then you get to that goal, you do it for one day and then you celebrate. And then the next year, like, okay, well, that was fun. Whereas like, no, we could be like partying for this, like the whole way there and celebrating and, and it just makes the process so much more enjoyable.
Yeah. Our brains are wired to actually see the negative because we're wired to keep safe and secure. So we actively have to try to celebrate or notice these good things. That's why every Friday in our members group, we do Bright Spot Friday to remember all the good things and celebrate each other and the good things. Because if you look, like you mentioned, Jilisa, if the goal is to run a half marathon, that time spent in the achievement of actually running the half marathon and then maybe getting your goal is so small, right? It's awesome. Celebrate it. That's great, but it's so small. And it's like this summit experience, right? All this work has led up to this moment. And then a lot of people fall off from there and they discontinue working on their fitness because they've reached this goal. And that's why it's important to celebrate these little milestones, these process goals, like Tom said too, like creating goals of work, of discipline. So once you create goals of, because we do that with our coaching clients, we say, this is how many times you're going to work out this week. This is how many times you're going to eat vegetables or eat protein, or these are milestone goals and process goals. So if you have a hard time creating goals for yourself, like maybe you don't have a 5 kilometer time or amount of pull-ups you want to get, then just create process goals. My goal this week is to work out 3 times or to eat 2 healthy meals a week. And that will start to build momentum and building something big from there.
Yeah.
So from there, Tom was talking about numbers. Then like you analyze, you have formulas. That's what, I mean, we've studied for years and years. I'm sure between the 3 of us, we have well over 30 years of experience in it.
Now.
Well, between the 3 of us. But in saying that, the reason I'm saying that is there's a lot that goes into creating a program that gets people to the results quickly, right? Because you, like we talked about before, you can search in Google and find millions, like literally millions of free workout plans. But now that you've seen the building blocks to a good exercise or nutrition routine, there's a lot of things that aren't taken into account in those free programs. You might get better, and I think it's great if you'll get fitter from those. But there's so much that goes into it that has to be built around the person's time constraints, the equipment they have, their baseline, their goals, their why, a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have anything to add on that?
I don't know if you actually said what number 4 was, but it's retest, right?
No, number 4 is creation of the program to get you to the goals. Yeah.
I thought we were just talking about rinse and repeat. So I was thinking,
you were waiting to say rinse and repeat.
I literally was. I was like, now is the time, right? We get to say that now? No. Okay.
Well, let's quickly do a little example. So let's say I come and see you as a client, Tom. I'm saying I have 0 pull-ups right now. I want 3 pull-ups. What's an example of something you might build out for? I'm putting you on the spot, but I know you're good at this. So,
Yeah, no, I would first of all see how long you can like hang from the bar for. Then I might test a single arm, like power row on each side, see how strong you are pulling on each side. And then from there, maybe we test like some banded pull-ups, or we see how well you can handle the eccentric or the slow lowering down portion of a pull-up. And so then we just slowly work on little things like that. And maybe we slowly reduce how thick the band is, or we increase the time under tension, or we increase the time that you like slowly go down on your eccentric pull-ups. And we maybe slowly build up the weight on those power rows, stuff like that. If you really like, a lot of people, if they want to try practicing like handstand push-ups or pull-ups, it's like we first need to be able to hang from the bar confidently. And for handstand push-ups, you need to be able to kick up into a handstand and hold it for a decent amount of time without stress, because we need to be able to go into that position you need to be able to hold that position before you can do the full movement. And so maybe even at the top of a pull-up hold at the top, then slowly lower back down. There's lots of things we could build out, but those are some of the movements that I would throw in and some of the things that I would test at the start. And then it depends on the person. Like some people respond better to banded work. Some people need more work with the eccentric phase. Some people need more work balancing out shoulders side to side. I test a lot of things around the shoulders, because there's sometimes where people have like, well, for me, I'm a prime example of it. I didn't do pull-ups for like 3 months, but I worked on my high pulls and strict presses. and I went back to do pull-ups and I could do 4 more. So there's a lot of things that can go into helping you get better pull-ups as well, that aren't just pulling movements that you would think maybe typically would help, which they do help, but there are other things to look at as well.
Yep. And even technique work too, right? So
Yep.
Great. And Jilisa, what's the next one? What's the 5th step?
Rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Retest.
Retest, create some new goals if you reach them. And that's basically what it is. And find a community that you enjoy being a part of, like a gym community, and enjoy. And if you want to make sure it's fun too, right? Like if you're going to be doing it for a long time and that's the goal, it's not just a one and done type thing. It's a lifestyle. You want to become the person that works out consistently and prioritize your health.
I was going to touch on there too. Like when you said reevaluate, that could be also reevaluating your why too. Like sometimes your why changes, like literally, like we said, start with the why, but when you come back around, who knows how many months or years it's been, your why could be slightly different or completely different, right? So reevaluate that, and that maybe helps you set or change maybe your goals. Maybe you're in a different season of life, when maybe, let's say you were single, then you're married, and then maybe you have kids, and then you're a grandparent, right? Like your reason why is going to change through all of those different seasons of your life. So I think that's always, maybe it stays the same, but just have a quick look back on what that is and make sure it's still accurate and conducive to where you want to go.
Love it. And the big reason that we all have is to stay healthy and fit, right? We all need to do that. We all need to invest in it. So if you need help, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you and have you a part of our community. Any last action items, team?
I think that covers it.
All right. We'll see everyone next week.